Hey, Brass Facts here. Today we're gonna. Oh, she's chewing her bone. No, I can't record if you decide to chew your bone every time I start filming. Oh, that's acceptable too. Hey, Brass Facts here. Today we're going to be doing a review, or more closely approximating, a overlook of my JPC 1.0. I've had this JPC 1.0 about 3 years, give or take. When you see me in my first videos where I did a review of, what was my first video? The Pursed, and you see my JPC in it, that is actually basically about the second or first month that I had said JPC. So, in a lot of ways, this JPC is a kind of existed the lifespan of the channel. The reason why I'm hesitant to call this a review is because the reality is I have experience with a lot of LPVOs. I have experience with a lot of red dots. I don't have experience with a lot of plate carriers. In fact, I've only used like 2 plate carriers for me personally, and really only observed maybe 2 to 3 others of plate carriers in my circle that would be considered mainstream plate carriers. The result is I can't do a review because I don't have the requisite knowledge to really make any statements that mean anything, right? Are these shoulder pads good? Well, they feel all right, but I've never actually tried any other shoulder pads, so I don't know if they're actually good or they're just, all I know is that they're good. There are a lot of channels that do review plate carriers. Thin Line Defense comes to mind as a channel that reviews a lot of plate carriers, thus having the prerequisite knowledge to be able to compare and contrast the different options on the market, because we are in a saturated market. That being said, I'm going to get into it now and discuss my experience, things I like, things I don't like when using this guy over the last 3 or so years, give or take. I think that's how long this channel's been going. Holy shit. Let's, or maybe it's been 2 years. Two and a little bit, I think, actually. That's a more accurate, front and center in JPC. You can kind of see we've gotten a fair bit of wear down here, and this is one of the areas where we are noticing degradation of the plate carrier, right? This is no longer connected. This molly piece is no longer properly connected, for example. This one's coming off, and you can see massive amounts of fraying. That is to be expected, though, and this is by far the heaviest contact area on the plate carrier, because, you know, you go into the prone, and you should be going in the prone a lot if you're training. This is what impacts the ground first, and as you move, this is what drags along the ground. Also, when you set the plate carrier down, this happens to be one of the primary impact points. So, relatively speaking, considering how hard I use this plate carrier, I'd say that's fairly acceptable, all things considered. Ask about fairly frequently is this insert. This is a kangaroo insert by GMR Gear. I had to look that up. I bought it a while ago. I'm a fan of Kydex inserts over cloth inserts. So I picked something like this. It inserts into the pouch and is a big reason why I was drawn to the JPC 1 over the JPC 2. The JPC 2 cannot take an insert like this because it doesn't have a pouch like this, though you can add one. When you look inside here, you're beginning to see a lot of wear. This won't show up on camera. I might have to feed in some pictures. But the elastic pieces between the main plate carrier and the pouch are completely blown the fuck out. There are no elastic properties left to them. That's probably partially because I'm using something like this, and because I've done a lot of re-indexing, reloading, so on and so forth. And that is just the nature of the beast. When you don't get a clean insert, you're going to impact the elastic portion and chew it up, especially with metal mags. Speaking of which, why not the JPC 2.0? Well, because I like this insert, but more importantly, I don't like placard systems. I am a fan of dedicated gear. If I want to run a chest rig, I will just run a chest rig. If I want to run a plate carrier, I will run my purpose-configured plate carrier, right? Because I want my plate carrier configured exactly the way I want it, and I want my chest rig configured exactly the way I want it. And situations where I run a plate carrier and situations where I run a placard are generally quite divergent. Therefore, I like dedicated systems, either mollying in the mag pouches or using something like this. I don't like placards. That's why you don't see any placards on here, or me ever use placards. Okay, moving on to some features on the front side. Fairly standard stuff up here. There is technically an admin pouch up here. I have never used it. It is so small as to be pointless. Functionally speaking, you can fit like a third of a map in there, a note card, maybe a range card, some coordinates, or some radio situations, but I just store them elsewhere on the plate carrier. To me, it sits so high, you're basically going to be choking yourself out trying to get into here, so I just don't use it. American flag. Some people have asked about this. I would not run this American flag if I ever were to use this plate carrier outside of some very select situations. This flag is on here because A, honestly, kind of looks cool. I'm not really a patch guy, but man, I grew up on Black Hawk Down in that, Somalia, Gothic Serpent era flag patch. Just kind of hits in all the right nostalgia spots. But more importantly, I have a YouTube channel that a lot of people watch, and some people are pretty down on America right now, but personally for me, I think it's still a pretty cool place. I've lived in a lot of places, so I still have a lot of pride for this country. And when you watch my channel, most of you are American, but a lot of you are not. And I think, even though it's fairly obvious in a lot of ways, I think being, hey, front and center, America, right? This is America. This is what we do here. I think that goes a long way to, it's just something I like to do. I don't really know how to explain it. I just do. All right, let's move up to the strap systems. This is where some contention about the JPC's long-term viability comes into, and that is these shoulder pad strap, whatever areas. Two factors. Number one, these laser cut polymer rubbery type things. I'm not 100% sure what they are, and the shoulder straps. Okay, first off, these pads. There's this concept called JPC sag. Some people say it's a myth. Some people say it kills the plate carrier. What was occurring is that over time, these will lose their elasticity and sort of become different shapes. And that is the case here. You can see one of the sides is actually longer than the other, and I'm not really sure how that ended up, but it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, you can adjust these underneath their size via these Velcro guys, but it is obnoxious that my plate carrier slowly over time changes its shoulder size, and as these get further and further blown the fuck out. It's worth noting my plate carrier rests or gets stored on the shoulder pads, so that absolutely does add to some of the degradation of these shoulder straps. Is it a deal breaker? No, I don't really think so. These are the most minimal, or at least one of the most minimalistic ways to have your shoulder area stay clear, but it comes at a cost, and that cost is, well, the JPC sag, which is kind of annoying. You'll notice in some videos, my lower plate sits a hair low of where it should be, even though I've configured it initially to be, well, to be properly sized, and that's because my plate carrier has grown. Number two, the shoulder straps. A lot of people really like thick padded shoulder straps, and I get it, right? But to me personally, the JPC excels as an ultra lightweight plate carrier where the gross weight is under 20 pounds. This guy comes in at about 16 pounds without magazines, but all the shit you've seen here so far. And to me, the necessity of a large built-up shoulder pad is mitigated there. Will it cut into my neck after like 2 to 3 hours? Yes, but it's not debilitatingly bad because the plate carrier is so light. So to me, I prefer the default pads, which are virtually not even pads at all. They just protect this area because I want the most minimalistic setup that is most akin to shooting without a body armor system as possible. Now, if I were to have a more built-up plate carrier, and I actually kind of want to build a more built-up plate carrier with side plates, a little more weight, and a little more capability, well then yes, I want built-up shoulder pads. But as a lightweight plate carrier, I don't really find that to be necessary, hence my desire to remain on the default shoulder pads. Cool. What do I have on my plate carrier? Let's look at the back panel, because that's where most of the bullshit is. Get the dog hair out of here. First off, the bag. Haley Strategic Flat Pack. No, not really. This is an Amazon knockoff. Why? I find the Haley Strategic bag is not only, I'll be blunt, a lot overpriced, especially when I bought this plate carrier, but B, it's actually kind of small, like really small. So I prefer this knockoff thing. Somehow this fucking thing is IR compliant. I don't know how. It's a Chinese brand. Who knows? They probably actually bought legit multicam for it or something. I don't know. But functionally speaking, all I really use this for is my hydration pouch, rain gear, and a little bit of food. Think 1 MRE, basically. There's also glow sticks shoved in here. That's more because I always forget to bring glow sticks when we do night shoots. So if I cram them in every nook and cranny, I can't possibly forget, right? Right. So why, I guess here's a good time to discuss, why am I running a bag system affixed to my plate carrier? Well, it's for a number of reasons. These situations in which I use a plate carrier, static in nature, vehicle-borne based in nature, or low duration in nature. Think under 15, under 12 hours in mission elapsed time. Obviously, it can go long, but the plan is to facilitate towards that mission, and that means keeping the weight down. In these scenarios, I am not going into my bag all the time. I'm going to my bag when we're at rest, perhaps in a building, perhaps in a car, whatever. And the ability to have a teammate or myself just take off the plate carrier and reach in and grab the thing I need, that's fine. The upside is we further lean into the JPC meta, for the lack of a better term, and that's what I discussed with the shoulder pads. I have these ultra-thin shoulder pads because I want to make this feel non-armor-like as possible. And the removal of backpack straps does that. Because realistically speaking, the situations when I would to use this configuration doesn't really require a heavy loadout backpack that I featured so frequently on this channel. Now, there are other aspects to it. I can just take the backpack off. If I decide I want a backpack, which is very, very likely, I'd say 50% of the time or more, I will just take this off. It's not hard to thread this in and out. I do it all the time, especially if I want to bring the plate carrier and want to reduce bulk, then I'll do it. But for the majority of this time, this carries hydration, some food, probably some snacks, extra magazines potentially, right? Because this is a pretty low total magazine setup. And then finally, more than likely, extra batteries and rain gear or something. Behind it, you can see some comms routing, and that is a Nagoya 771 routed into via zip ties and this Velcro to the actual comms system. Speaking of which, let's go discuss my comms system. My comms system is amateurish, for the lack of a better term. It is a Baofeng's UV5R. Now, I've spent a lot of time perfecting the UV5R, for the lack of a better term, which involves programming all of them to be identical, having a distributed comms channel system so everyone knows who's on what to do, which channels to show up on when. However, ultimately, it's still a UV5R, and I will make a video on the UV5R, its upsides and downsides. And there are a lot of downsides, and there are a lot of upsides. With this setup, however, I have some pretty wild comms transmission range, absolutely compared to an FRS, but even competitive with some of the more expensive options. That is basically off of the back of this antenna that is routed through here, once again a 771 I believe. PTT up here, that I have loose because I want to point it at my mouth when I talk, to facilitate talking. However, alternately, I can undo this bit, and my helmet has a aux cable that I can plug into here, and then wear the helmet and have comms routed through my headset instead, while still using this as a PTT. I prefer this setup because it gives me both comms when I don't have my helmet, which is not too infrequently, but I also can route into a direct comms setup. Once again, not the most ideal setup. Absolutely a poor fag setup, but it does work, and I do dig it. Speaking of which, here's the pouch I'm using. Fairly simple. I had an actual legit Cry radio pouch, if I recall, but it didn't work too well. I found this thing I just salvaged off of something ended up working far better with the top cut out, and it just sits in here. Yes, it's fairly loose, but when it's on my body, I actually find it presses into it and keeps it from going anywhere, while still having the ability to pull it out, adjust channels, and then slip it back in. So, setup has worked quite well for me. Up front, TQ pouch. It's a TQ pouch, nothing more to say about it. It stayed in here just fine, works well enough. And then back here, we have a first aid pouch. This might be a 511. Yeah, it is a 511. This is far enough back that I can't realistically pick and choose what I want out of it. But if a medical situation develops, I can hook my thumb in here and just pour the guts out on the floor and do what needs to be done. I think that's an adequate way about going about things instead of trying to, I want this piece and this piece and this piece. No, just give it all to me. I'm probably going to need it all anyway. Another piece of kit. This is an admin pouch. Generally, these are supposed to be mounted below your chin, above your mags, but turns out I fucking hate mounting shit like that because it's in the way of your mags, and it's in the way of your rifle, and it's in the way of a lot of things. So this got migrated onto the cummerbund. In here, I have a multi-tool, which is critical. Everyone needs a multi-tool on their kit. Some extra batteries, some dope cards, radio batteries. This is actually kept mostly empty, right? Most of it is empty because, well, I need to actually have quick access stuff. So if there's something I need to bring specific for that day, well, it goes in here. And this is much easier to access than obviously the backpack. And that covers it. I don't run a pistol, so I don't have a pistol pouch attached to this setup. If I'm running a pistol, I'm going to run a more covert setup. So soft armor, I'm going to look like the Gray Man, whatever you want to call it. But if I have a rifle, I'm configuring myself for the rifle, and I'm not adding approximately 5 to 10 pounds worth of shit to support a backup system. I don't run handguns. You can run a handgun, I just don't. So you won't see handgun stuff on my plate carrier setups almost ever, even my chest rig setups. And all in all, that's about it. I'm a big fan of keeping it as low profile as possible. I'm not an infantryman. I'm not, doing massive contacts, massive peels, any of that. I don't need that level of ammunition. And if I do decide I need that level of ammunition, I can stock up on here. So baseline 3+1, and I can add more mags into here if I so feel like I need. Other aspects of the JPC, big fan of the cummerbund setup, right? This lower yield cummerbund without elasticity front and center, because that stuff loves to pick up bullshit in Utah and it tears it apart. Similarly, I'm still a big fan of dog hair magnets. I'm still a big fan of Velcro. Yes, the spear tubes or whatever they're called are certainly nice and they're quick in and out, but realistically speaking, I don't care about being that quick in and out. And I prefer the ability to adjust the circumference of the plate carrier much more readily without having to dick with anything. Now, you can do that with the tubes and all that, right? Because you can still move the cummerbund. But I just prefer a much more simplistic setup, and I don't really enjoy having those tubes either back here or up front because they take up space of things. One aspect I absolutely fucking despise is the non-built-in aspect of this. I don't want to take it apart. You can see it most clearly here. Is these elastic portions to hold the cummerbund in. And that's all you really, functionally speaking, that's all holding, the only thing holding your plate carrier together is string. Elastic spring, for that matter. And it's supposed to mimic the elastic cummerbund. Functionally speaking, it kind of works in that regard. The issue is that it's a string. And in the way they configure it from JPC, like when it comes in the mail, it is very loose, and it will come undone, and it has come undone multiple times for me. And that is a pretty big deal, because it functionally just sidelines your entire plate carrier as your cummerbund goes, and then everything goes to shit. I think there would be far more elegant ways to execute upon this. Breathability. This is something a lot of people talk about. The JPC fucking sucks for breathability. There are technically pontoons on the side, right? They're like this tall. They might as well not exist, and if anything, I think they're more just to prevent pressure points from forming due to the edge of the plate carrier. When you wear this plate carrier, you're going to get sweaty, and your plate carrier is going to get sweaty. Everything is going to get sweaty. Sweat. But certainly, whatever exists on the market, it's probably better than the JPC nowadays, because this is just flush fitting to your body, and you sweat, and the whole thing gets soaked, yada, yada, yada. I'm fortunate I don't really sweat very much, probably because I only drink soda, and there is no more H2O in my body, so I can't sweat, but yeah, that is a factor and a downside of the JPC. As for the plate bags, I don't really get wrapped up around plate bags. To me, plates go in and they never come out again. So I've taken it out like 3 times total. And that really is that, right? Plate goes in, put the Velcro on, and never ever touch it again because it's a plate carrier. It needs plates. End of story. And that about is that. Go lie down. Lie down on the plate carrier. Oh yeah. There you go. Alright, thanks for watching. This is just a, short, low effort video just to kind of spin you guys up on my plate carrier setup. Really, there's not too much to it.